Welcome to everyone. Um, let's get started. Hello and welcome everyone to tonight's virtual North American alumni panel, Building a Career on the German Abitur. Thank you all for your interest in German education and for participating in tonight's event. I'm Marian Goodwin, Director of Admission and Enrollment at German International School Boston, and on behalf of my colleagues from the German International Schools in Silicon Valley, Washington, D.C., New York, and the Alexander von Humboldt Schule in Montreal, I extend a warm welcome to our first ever joint event. Before I introduce you to tonight's moderator, who will in turn introduce our esteemed alumni, there are a few housekeeping matters to address. Please be aware that tonight's event will be recorded. As this is a webinar, all audience members are muted and will not appear in the recording. If you have any questions, kindly use the chat function and we will do our best to address them towards the end of the event. Please note that we won't be able to answer any school-specific questions tonight, but rest assured that we will reach out to you afterwards. The same applies if you submitted a question during the registration process. Without further ado, I would like to introduce tonight's moderator, Jens Korte. Mr. Korte serves as the president and senior correspondent at New York German Press, where he reports daily from the floor of the New York Stock Exchange on the ups and downs of the U.S. economy for Swiss Television, Deutsche Welle, and NTV. We are excited to have him join us tonight to guide us through an enlightening panel discussion featuring distinguished alumni from the German International Schools in Washington, D.C., New York, Boston, Montreal, and Silicon Valley. Jens, the floor is yours.
Yeah, Marian, thank you very much and welcome everybody, and especially, you all listening and watching in, and then special thanks to all the alumni participating in this world premiere, as you put it. I mean, it was never been done before, the German schools kind of having this floor together for the first time. I think what makes this evening or afternoon, depending on where you are, so special is that it's really a chance that not the school themselves will present themselves, but it's actually people who went to the school, some a bit longer ago, some just recently talk about their experiences. I think two topics that we already saw came up quite often from answers that we got from the questions that we got from the audience. Is how does it work with the small size of the classes in the German schools? And then clearly with the Abitur, how does it work with the transition going, for example, to a US college or an international university? So I'm sure that the alumni, I mean, I talked to all of them before. Everybody is really fascinating people. So I'm sure you will get a lot out of this event. And maybe one very brief word why I'm here. So I joined the board of the German school in New York a year ago. I do have a son, but he does not go to the German school. He goes to a public school in Brooklyn, where we live. But I have a pretty good comparison. So what the challenges sometimes also are from some public schools. So my son's high school is massive. I mean, there are 4,500 kids, so that's quite different from the experience that one might have at the German school or will have at the German school. But maybe that's just a little bit to my background. And I would say we have 10 panelists. Each one I will have 2 questions or so. So I think we just get started. So to get this going, so that towards the end there will also be time for your questions that you can ask through the feed option or the chat option. So Anna, you're the lucky one. You're letter A. I mean, so you're first. Maybe just very briefly, and then I will we'll come up with a follow-up question. But maybe very briefly, you can just say what you're doing right now.
Okay, I think I'm muted. Hi, yeah, my name is Anna Dechtensreiter. I'm a senior at Boston University, studying neuroscience and philosophy, and I graduated from the German International School of Boston in 2020.
Okay, perfect. And so maybe when we talked, what I thought very interesting, and I think that that does tell you something about also the network of the German schools. If I remember correctly, you did an exchange program in 10th grade. So maybe you could just briefly tell
Yes.
us so what you did.
Yeah. So my sophomore year of high school in 10th grade, I spent 3 months abroad at the International German School in Paris. That was kind of spurred on from having taken French for a few years leading up to that, being very invested in wanting to um, increase my language proficiency in that area. And I was able to, through our school, the German International School of Boston, reach out to them and set up an exchange, find a host family, and spend my fall semester there while still preparing for the MSA, which is a big exam in 10th grade.
Okay,
That's
great.
great.
And maybe one very brief follow-up. So did other of your classmates do something similar? Is that something where you would say that's common that
Yeah.
people might spend some time abroad?
Yeah, I think it was definitely newer for my year, but in our grade, a lot of us went abroad. I think there were only like a few students who spent that fall in Boston. Some people went to Barcelona to go to the German school there. Others tried out public schools or spent abroad in Germany, Frankfurt area. So a lot of people went to different schools to experience different environments, and then came back for the spring semester to the German school.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, thank you so much, Anna. So we'll be back a bit later on. So maybe Dominic, maybe we can continue with you. So if you might also just super briefly say what you are doing right now. I mean, you're a class of 2019. I can say so much, but maybe you're just saying what you're doing at the moment.
Yeah, great. I was at GISP with Anna, and then didn't move very far, and started my undergraduate degree at Harvard. And I'm now in my 5th year at Harvard, doing my senior year, because I took a gap year over COVID, which I actually spent at ETH in Zurich.
Yeah, that's great that you mentioned that, because that's actually so we did not prepare it that way. So it's a coincidence that you're mentioning your stay in Zurich. So maybe you can just tell us a little bit how it might have also helped you that actually you were at the German school, so that during COVID, and maybe you can also say why you did go to Zurich for, it was a year.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, so I think it kind of starts when you're in the German school and are starting to think about colleges. You have these amazing opportunities both in the US and Europe, and you kind of have the Qual der Wahl, the hard choice between the two places, which are both great and very different. So I ended up deciding to stay in the US just because I like the idea of not having to focus on a specific degree and kind of get the liberal arts education. But COVID happened and colleges were totally shut down, and it felt like it would be a waste to miss out on the residential experience by doing a year online. And then over that summer, kind of, I was thinking about what to do with the time off. And studying in Europe had always also been a dream. And Switzerland was lucky enough to have really low COVID numbers at the time. So ETH was actually still in person for that next year. And really, like, it was June or July that I decided that I was going to take a gap year, and I was like, how am I going to work this out? But there was a late application deadline at ETH, and I was really only able to make this happen so quickly because I had the Abitur and I had the right subjects, and those were accepted at ETH. So I kind of mailed it in, speed mail, got everything in, the original documents from Boston, and was able to study pure math at ETH for a year, which was one of the most rewarding experiences of my time in college.
Great, thanks a lot. And did you go skiing or?
I did, even though it was a bit taboo at the time.
Okay.
Switzerland was still open, if you remember, and Germany wasn't. It was quite mad at Switzerland for keeping it open.
I can always do cross country. Yeah. Okay. Thanks so much, Dominic. So maybe we switch over. I wanted to switch over to Sebastian, but I think he's not there yet. So I would say let's move forward to Matthias. So Matthias, your class of 95. So maybe you can also at the German school in Washington. So maybe very briefly you can tell us. There's Sebastian, but I can come back to Sebastian after Matthias. So Matthias, so I would say, yeah. So maybe just briefly what you're doing right now.
Sure. I graduated in 1995, moved back to Germany, got a degree in public administration, and I currently work for the Department of the Navy doing accounting and contracts management. So I'm in the public sector working for the Department of Defense in Germany, and I'm currently on loan to the Department of the Navy here in the US for the second time, actually.
Oh, okay. So when we talked, you did mention that some of your kids go to the German school?
Yes, I have 5 kids in total. 3 have graduated, 2 have graduated from German schools. 1 has graduated from the German school in Toulouse in France, which is very tightly tied to the Airbus consortium. The number 2 graduated in Germany, and then number 3 graduated here at GISW just last year. And then I have 2 more in school here at GISW, 1 in 10th grade and 1 in 3rd.
Okay, so then you already have a secure job at Airbus. I mean, that's not too bad. Yeah, it's so. So if you compare maybe what you see with your kids now and what you experienced back then, so how would you say? I mean, clearly you can only talk mostly about the German school in Washington, but what would you say? I mean, how has the school changed over time?
It has certainly taken on a very, very different flavor of not being as much of an expat school. So back in 1995, most of the kids at the German International School in Washington had a German-speaking background. We had some other nationalities that had affinity to the German language and the school has certainly in the last 30 almost years evolved way past that. I think we currently have 30 to 40 nationalities at the school. There's a lot of other languages that are spoken. Spanish, for example, is now a 3rd foreign language at the school, which wasn't the case 30 years ago. And it's just another one of the many subjects that the schools offer.
Do you have an idea why that might have happened, so that it became more international, so to speak?
I think that the German school system and the quality of the curriculum is just really interesting to a lot of people for varying reasons. But obviously it gets you an entry into the school system, just like Dominic mentioned previously, both here in the US with the dual degree that GISW offers, and gets you access to essentially free university in Europe, and not just Germany, it's all over Europe.
Okay, great. Thanks so much. So Sebastian, welcome. Hello. So great that you're also on board. So you're a class of 1990. So also at the German International School in Washington. So maybe also just very briefly, if you might just give us an idea what you're doing right now.
Yeah, thank you so much, and my apologies for being slightly late. I had a long day at work. So I currently work at the World Bank, where I am a director for strategy and operations for global infrastructure practice, essentially covering the energy transition, decarbonization of the transport sector, digital development, and investments into infrastructure, various infrastructure asset classes. I've been doing this for about 23 years and have held various positions within the World Bank Group, both International Finance Corporation as well as IBRD IDA. And as you've already mentioned, I am an alumni. I graduated back in 1990 and have a dual background. I went to Germany where I obtained a Master's of Law at the University of Passau, and then after a few years of working at the OECD, went on to get an MBA with the HEC School of Management in Paris.
Yeah, that's actually a great point, because I mean, you especially coming from the field of law seems to me at least could be a bit challenging. I mean, if you move between different countries and different systems and law systems clearly. So how did you manage that? So how did that work for you, that you could kind of do the switch between the German and then the US system?
So I think if you study law, there are different types of law that you conduct. Some people, many of, in fact, in my class, went on to become very successful German lawyers. But there are quite a few that actually chose an international career. So I've had colleagues that have gone on to work for international law firms in various jurisdictions, including my wife, by the way. But then also many people went into the EU and then other international organizations like I did. So I find that law really offers a very solid first of all, a great way of tackling sort of problems, challenges in a very structured and logical manner that I think you can really apply or transfer to other fields as well and achieve success.
Okay. And so with the Abitur, it was no problem to go to schools on either side of the Atlantic.
No,
I mean,
quite the
colleges and universities. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a good question, yes, and quite the contrary. So I found that obviously in Germany it's a you know, an advantage to have an Abitur. There are other degrees that are accepted, but it becomes a lot more complicated to enter into you know, the specific field that you would like. But I've actually found that the German Abitur, when I applied for back then into the HSC School of Management, really was valued, and I've seen it now with my children as well. So like my colleague, we have 4 kids that have went to the German school, 2 of which are now studying at university. One is at Cambridge, also studying law. The other one is at Warwick, studying economics. And I've actually found that their German Abitur degree really is highly valued. I would even argue more so than in other jurisdictions as well. And if you go into the website and you see how it's valued and how it translates, you can actually see that it really does offer quite a bit of opportunity and a leg up, if you so will. So I think that there's a lot of value added from the German Abitur, not only in Germany but also in other sort of educational systems in other countries.
Okay, great. Yeah, thank you so much, Sebastian. So coming back later, and I mean you were perfect in time. I mean, right when it was your cue, so your camera popped up. So thanks a lot. So Roland, coming to you. Yeah, also thank you so much for participating. I mean, we also talked. Well, I don't know, when was it, a week or 2 weeks ago by phone. Also quite a fascinating video that you're having. So maybe so let me see. You went to the German International School in Silicon Valley. You're a class of 2018. So maybe you can also give us a brief idea, so where you are at the moment.
Yeah, thank you for the introduction. I did graduate in 2018 from Silicon Valley, but I'm originally from Cairo, Egypt, and so I only did a few years at that school. And then I went on to do my undergrad at Pepperdine here in Southern California, and then ended up staying here working in HR, and I'm currently getting my MBA here as well.
Okay, great. Yeah, and that actually, so when we talked, I think that also shows something about the German school system. So you just mentioned so that you originally went to the German school in Cairo. So why did you go to the German school in Cairo?
Well, we don't really have much of a relationship to Germany or the German system, but by chance, my mom ended up in a German school in Cairo, ended up putting us, me and my 2 older brothers, in a German school as well. And then we decided to move, and it all transferred 1-to-1, so we didn't really have an issue there. But yeah, honestly, no direct connection.
Okay, so what is, but you started from kindergarten or from first grade, or?
Yes, we started when we were young. We went to kindergarten, and it was a German one as well, transferred just for like a K through 12 in Egypt, and then again at GSSV.
So how did that work language-wise when you started with the German?
Well, we only spoke it at home with my mom. No one else in our family spoke it. So it was mainly just speaking it at school and with friends at school. So by the time we got here, we spoke more German than we did English. But that ended up being just a totally fine adjustment as well.
So and maybe one quick thing. So then you switched from the German school of Cairo to the German school in California. So how did that transition work? Yeah.
It was a little bit challenging just in terms of size. There is a size difference. Back home, the school is a lot bigger. Here, it's a lot smaller. The transition itself, in terms of our classes, it was totally fine because the curriculum is the same, and everything transferred over. But I think the setup of the schools was just a little bit different, with this one being bilingual, and half of our classes being conducted in English. So that was a little bit challenging. But other than that, it really was a smooth transition. We don't come from an expat family either, so we didn't really know how long we were staying or anything like that. So it was just a, year by year type of thing, and thankfully it ended up working out.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. So let's get over to to Christian, class of 98, here in New York. Yeah. No, we have no favorites. I mean, all the schools are equal just because I'm in New York and I'm a board member there. So yeah, so Christian, maybe also very briefly, if you might just give us a rough idea what you're doing at the moment.
Yeah, thank you, Jens, and it's great to be here with everyone and share this evening. So I'm at the moment at the World Economic Forum here in the New York office, and I work on environmental issues, specifically around circular economy and plastic pollution. Very important, I think, at this time. There's a global treaty being negotiated on that. So for those who have followed it, so it's a great topic to work on. But in terms of my sort of the German school trajectory, I was I graduated in 1998 and then did my undergraduate studies at Columbia University here in New York. So I stayed in New York. I was very interested in going into international relations, and so New York seemed, with the UN here and you know, the international connectivity, it seemed like a good choice. And that transition to an American college was also very easy because of the Abitur. Did my master's in the UK at the London School of Economics, and yeah, and maybe just one fun fact: I also have 2 daughters at the German school now in New York, and I myself did the last 2 years before graduating at the school, but before that was also at the school from 6th to 9th grade. So I actually came back to the German school. So this, with my kids now here, it's the 3rd time at the German school, really. And so it's sort of hard to stay away, I guess. So.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you so much. And then actually, so that was something that I briefly wanted to touch on with you, because when we talked, I mean, you did mention that there was a bit of switching back and forth between schools and countries, right? So maybe you could just briefly tell us what precisely you did and how that worked out for you, switching a couple of times.
Yeah, so I switched from Germany to the German school here in New York, and then to the German Swiss International School in Hong Kong, then back to Germany for a year, and then back to New York for the last 2 years. And I would say it was similar to the previous comments, a very seamless transition. I think the curricula were from different Bundesländer, but it really didn't change that much. So it really made the transition possible or easy, really, and provided some consistency. Yeah.
Okay, great. I mean, I'm not here, and that's not my position to advertise for the German schools. But I mean, when I talked with all of you guys before, I mean, that was definitely an idea that I got. So also, if you're interested in spending some time in a different country, I mean that, or also in a different area in the United States, for instance, I mean, that transition probably seems to be quite easy within the German school system. Yeah. So Marion, I did see that there was one question, how many German schools there are, maybe just very briefly. So for not North America, because Mexico is also part of North America, but let's say in Canada and in the United States, are there more than 5 schools?
So there are altogether in our network, there's 135, between 135 and 140 in the entire world. They're part of the network. There are more German schools, but not every German school is part of the network. And in North America, we have, those are the 5 the ones that are represented here today are the ones that offer the Abitur. There are other parts, there are other schools in the United States and in Canada that are also part of the network, but they don't actually offer the Abitur yet because they only go until grade 8.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So Lara, if it's okay, we go next to you. So also thanks a lot for being part of our panel tonight. So you're from Canada, so, or at least that's where you went to in Montreal, to the Alexander von Humboldt Schule. So maybe also very briefly, so what you are doing at the moment, so class of 2018, yeah.
Yeah, so I graduated from the Alexander von Humboldt Schule in Montreal in 2018. And then I went to Concordia, which is a university here in Montreal. I did my undergrad in neuroscience. And now I'm pursuing my Doctor of Pharmacy at the University of Toronto.
Okay, great. And you're also from Egypt, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but you did not go to the German school in Egypt.
I did.
Ah,
So
you
I
did.
went there from kindergarten up until 8th grade. And then I transitioned to the German school here in Montreal.
Okay. And what was your reason to go to the German school in Cairo in the first place?
My mom is
I
half
mean,
German.
probably your parents' choice. I mean, yeah, was 5 or 6. Yeah.
So my mom's side of the family is German, and she had gone to a German school in Cairo as well. And that's something they wanted to keep in the family, which is the language and the curriculum, and as well as the certain discipline that comes with just being in a German system. That also ended up transferring to my younger brother. He also went to a German school, both in Egypt and here in Canada.
Okay. And maybe one thing that I wanted to touch on with you is what has been your experience with the German schools you went to with the size? Because I mean the schools often are rather small. I mean, I don't know how many students graduated with you in 2018.
We were a total of 11 who did Abitur. It's a quite small school, but I found it quite amazing because every single student got the opportunity to really like go to their full extent. In comparison to the other school that I went to in Egypt, we were much bigger. We're a much bigger class. So this change was definitely interesting to the much smaller school here. But I met great people like Elias. He also went to school with me there, and we're still in contact. We're still friends, and it's a great environment to be in.
Okay, so you did not see that necessarily as a disadvantage being in a small class, or did you rather see it as an advantage?
I definitely didn't see it as a disadvantage. It was nice because everyone got the attention they needed, and as well as you were never forgotten behind because the class was too big. So I definitely didn't see it as a disadvantage.
Okay. So, Elias, maybe we stay in Canada for the moment. So, yeah, your class of when? I don't
Also
know.
2018.
Also
Graduated with
2018. Yeah, so you graduated together. Yeah. So maybe just very briefly. So what are you up to at the moment?
So after the Abitur, I did my bachelor's in chemistry at McGill University here in Montreal. And now I'm currently in the second year of my master's in soil science, also at McGill.
Okay, and if I see that, if I made the right notes here when we talked, I thought it's interesting that you joined the German school in 7th grade and that you went to a public school to Chicago before. So maybe first, why the switch from the public school in Chicago to the German school in Montreal? I mean, probably your parents moved and then you had to pick a new school, but was there a particular reason why you chose the German school and not, let's say, any Canadian high school or such, or middle school at that point, I guess? Yeah.
Yeah, so my mother is German, and in fact she's also a German teacher at the German school AVH in Montreal. And so we kind of moved to Montreal both to give my sister and I a chance to go to the German school, and also because my father, my sister, and I are Canadian citizens, and so it was, kind of easy to go to Canada. Montreal is a nice city to live in, so it was kind of, a convenient place to go.
Okay.
But
yeah, sorry.
no, please.
Yeah, and so what would you say? What was the difference coming from the public school in Chicago going to this smallest German school in Montreal?
Yeah, I mean, of course, it was a huge difference going from a class of about 30 to 35 students to, more in the low 20s. Personally, it was really great for me because, I was just the kind of kid that got along much better in smaller groups of people. I think I benefited also from, kind of seeing the same people every day, not having a high school experience where you're seeing lots of different people all the time. And yeah, I mean, the transition, I mean, I think the risk there is that, some of my classmates then weren't able to adapt well to, the larger slice of society you see when you go to university. but personally, I ended up in actually a quite small university program. The bachelor's in chemistry at McGill is also a class of about 30 people. And so, that definitely made the transition easier for me. So I was able to kind of dodge one of the potential negatives of the small classes at the German school.
I mean, I can only tell from not from my but from my son's experience. So running through the public school system here in New York, pretty much from day one, and he was born here in New York, so he's a New Yorker. But I mean and not every public school is equal. I mean, that's obvious. But for me, that was something very new. I came here to this country in '98, so I came here for work and not for academics. But what I found very interesting is that every single year, and I don't know if that's true with every public school, but every single year they had new classes. So he was never together with always the same kids, and that sometimes was also, I mean, he met a lot of kids, but it was also not that easy to really build up deep friendships. But that's just at the side from my own experience. Yeah. But yeah, thank you so much, Ilya. So I'm also been talking a bit more in the second round that's going to start very soon. So maybe getting over to Jennifer, fellow New Yorker. So class of 2004. So yeah, Jennifer, maybe just also very briefly. So what are you doing at the moment?
Sure, thank you so much. I'm currently working at the UN Secretariat here in New York. I lead on the diversity, equity, and inclusion agenda here for our internal workforce, part of the Office of Human Resources. I'm really excited to hear some of the global action on climate change that colleagues are working on. So my route, yeah, I graduated from the German school in 2004, and I went back to Germany to do my bachelor in media and communications at the University of Augsburg. And then I went actually to the UK to do my master's at the London School of Economics, I think similar as Christian, in organizational and social psychology. And then was also doing a study abroad in Australia, and then came back after working in the UK for some time here to New York.
And if I remember correctly, you also so you joined in fourth grade, is that right?
Yeah.
But then it was sixth, seventh grade that you moved back to Germany. So that was, and then you came back to New York. So
yes.
So how did that work for you?
Yeah, I think similar maybe to what others said. I just feel the German school really sets you up for the future because change is part of life. And, making new friends is something that you need to learn. And I think the kind of going back and forth was helpful and easy. The transition from, the German school in New York and going back to Germany, I had no problem, except, yeah, the German schools in Germany were just much larger. So kind of getting used to a bigger classroom and less attention. That's probably the harder bit. But then you really acknowledge the value of having a smaller classroom and the attention and the great learning experience. And what I always felt is that the German school, you make friends for life. I still have some of my best friends from the German school at that time. They're all over the world now. But I think that was really the benefit of the smaller classes and the community that really surrounds the German school as well.
Okay, great. Thank you. Actually, my wife, she did go to the German school close to Barcelona, but it's a coincidence that now I'm kind of in the board of the German school here in New York. But so I do know also a little bit about that system. So her brother went there as well. Yeah. Okay, thank you so much. So last but not least, Jack, where are you? There you are, Jack. Yeah, thank you also so much. So you went to the German school in Silicon Valley, and yeah, maybe the class of 2017, maybe also just briefly. And I still owe you the link to the Schubert Lieder. I'm just seeing here on my notes. I will do that later on. So what are you doing right now?
So after GSSV, I went to Pomona College for 4 years, where I studied economics and environmental studies. and also played on the soccer team down there. And then after graduating, I made the big move across the country to New York. So I'm now an East Coaster, and I'm proud about it. And I've been working at Columbia for 2 years, doing what sounds like relatively similar stuff to some of the other people on the panel. I work at the Center on Sustainable Investment here at the university, where I'm focusing on fossil fuels and circular economy work.
Okay, great. So I found that, if I'm not mistaken, you were sort of the one who joined the German school system at the highest age. I think it was 9th grade. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
And so, and you came from a public school before. So why did you switch from the public school to the German school system?
So I went to public school through 8th grade, and then I think it was in the spring of 8th grade, I was looking, or I was thinking about next steps, obviously. And I was like 99% into just the public high school. And my mom, who's from Germany, then suggested I take a look at the German school. And I shadowed for one day. And my mom loves telling this story because when she came and picked me up from school that day, like allegedly I came out of the school just with a massive smile on my face. And like immediately I got in the car and was like, okay, this is it. Like, not doing any of the other options, definitely going here. And then, yeah, the rest was kind of history, and it worked out perfectly.
And so how were your German skills when you started?
So they were pretty good. They were okay. A funny story I like to tell is that my mom is from a very small, like rural village outside of Karlsruhe. So she raised us speaking Badisch. So when I came to school, the kids were all confused because I was this American boy without an American accent speaking, Badisch. And I kept making, the first half year, I kept making writing mistakes where I would write words with like a Badisch dialect. But the teachers were great. And the fact that most of the students at GSSE are like German and not American led to me, just like completely immersing myself in German even more than I'd ever done before. And then, once you do that, you just learn so much so quickly. So I feel like within a year, I was no longer behind anyone. Probably even less than that.
Okay, great. So yeah, thank you so much. And I think I go very quickly with the next round. So my son, he did very, very briefly, but that's a long story, and I'm not going into the details here. Very, very briefly, he joined the German school in Brooklyn for a month, and so what is not affiliated to our network here, but I think what is a little similarity is small classes. And so when he went there, he said for the very first time in his academic life, at least, teachers really paid a lot of attention what he's doing, what he's saying, what he's working on. So that was just a little episode so from my experience there. So thank you so much. So I would say so that we also get to some questions, Mario, and I would say we do like a quick a small second round with set of questions that I had prepared. So Anna, maybe let's restart with you. I think you're a bit of a special case. I mean, you all are clearly, but when it comes to the Abitur, and does it help you? Does it hinder you applying for a US college? I think in your case, it definitely did help that you're in the rowing team. Is that correct?
Yes, I have a bit of a special situation where I went through the recruiting process while rowing in high school, and then got recruited to Boston University, which Abitur still needs to be translated, and I still had to apply to the school, but I was already on the rowing team by then.
Yeah, so I made a little note here that, I mean, the translation, I think that's for everybody listening in and thinking about, I mean, can we switch from the Abitur level to the college level. I think that is one technicality that has to be done, but obviously that seems to be rather simple. We come to someone else a bit later, but you did not do any AP classes or such, and no extra
Yeah.
credits or so for the education.
So basically, when I got my Abitur or any kind of transcript from German International School, there was always an equivalent American grade. So that translation then led to identifying whether we graduated with honors, or usually it was like an honorable, not AP, which is like advanced placement, but it was honors math, honors German, honors everything. So then I was able to come into college with already 16 credits from just language requirements. So I didn't have to spend my freshman year or sophomore year pursuing any form of language, because I got that through my German grades and also just being fluent in it. So that was a lot of help. I did not take any APs or didn't get any credits transferred for APs, but I know from talking to some recent people at the German International School in Boston, at least, that APs are now an option. At least taking the test is an option, which then would allow transfer credits into at least American college systems.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, Anna. So Dominic, maybe briefly, when we talked, you did mention that you did some extra projects, some extra credits, so that might have helped you to get into the college or university here, right?
So yeah, I think I definitely did the SAT and SAT subject tests, which were required, and I think those weren't unimportant, given that the GISB was kind of an unknown quantity to US colleges, and it was unclear to them what an A at the German International School corresponded to in comparison to schools that they might recognize. So I think those standardized tests and taking the subject tests were important as kind of a benchmark for how I performed academically. And then I also, took advantage of being at a small school and kind of building out my extracurriculars in that sense. I think the small school really lets you take action, take initiative, and build, be that a robotics club, a Model UN team, or kind of community service organization, just because nothing exists yet at these small schools. And everyone's so excited about it. And at least at GISB, the administration, the teachers were very willing to step up and help us if we were excited about a project.
Okay, great. Thank you. And I think that is probably important for parents and also students to consider. I mean, to get some extra curriculum stuff. I mean, that definitely makes it easier to get accepted at colleges. Yeah. So Sebastian, maybe getting over to you. So what would you say? How did the Abitur how did it prepare you for your further academic and also professional life? So would you say that gave you an advantage, or also what was your comparison hitting people from the US high school system? What kind of differences or so did you experience there?
So I will agree with the speakers before me that it really helped in terms of the sort of academic quality and translating that into grades and GPAs, et cetera. I think that is definitely an advantage. There's actually a group chat right now taking place in parallel where, and this is important, many of the courses that you take under the German school system are actually considered AP courses in the US. So they translate very, very well, and you get additional credits for this and are recognized by universities. But I'd also like to echo the extracurricular side. If you're in a U.S. high school with 2,000 plus students, it's not always easy to get into the chess club or this soccer team or what have you, right? Whereas in these smaller German schools, you can not only be a part of these communities, but also become a captain, take on leadership positions in various different school groups, and I think that helps as well, in particular if you're applying to U.S. schools. But I think most important is and again, this was echoed by somebody who had mentioned this earlier. I think most important is the fact that you are dealing with this very transient nature. And I think that's what helped me prepare most for university and then later on in life, in that you have about, at least when I went to the school, about a third of the kids would rotate essentially every single year. So you constantly have to make new friends, to readapt to new situations, and also you're a foreigner in a different country, in learning a different educational system that requires a bit of mental agility, I would say. And I think that also translates very well and gives you a leg up later on in life, in particular in this world that we live in today. So I see that, you know, having that empathy, being able to put yourself in the shoes of how other people are thinking, and having a bit of objectivity and distance sometimes really helps a lot. Certainly helped me, and I see it with my children as well.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Yeah, so Matthias, so maybe a bit of a similar question to you. How would you say that the German school did help your professional life?
So in terms of language proficiency, certainly did. You have to remember that I started the German school in 7th grade. My first foreign language was French. So I started the German school with literally 6 months of Oxford grade English under my belt when I transferred to GISW. And I graduated with an AP class in English and did quite well at doing so. That was instrumental in preparing me for my professional career down the road. When I applied for my diploma or for university in Germany, economic times in Germany in 1995, 5 years after reunification, were really hard. 20% unemployment in my age group at the time. It was really hard to get into colleges / find a job, and I was placed in the top 1%, getting the career that I've now pursued for the last 25 years.
Good, great. Thank you so much. I mean, maybe once again, very briefly from the experience that I've seen. Also, Sebastian, to your point, my son did try, for example, at his high school, get into the soccer team, but unfortunately the tryouts are during the summer break, and if you're traveling at that time, there's no way that you can make it into the high school team. So just because the option exists does definitely not mean that you get in. So, but I mean, once again, I mean, not every all high schools are very different. Yeah, but thanks so much. Okay, so Roland, maybe to you, also a bit, how did the transition to college work? And then I think for you, also the whole possibilities of languages is something that you actually appreciated. And once again, so my son, he took French for the past couple of years. Now they don't offer French anymore because they don't have the funds for the teachers in 11th and 12th grade. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the transition for me was actually really smooth. I liked that GSSV was small because then I ended up at a smaller university, which I enjoyed because the smaller class size is actually basically translated over as well. But I majored in international studies, international management. So big component of my studies was languages, and I was actually able to waive out of all of the language requirements, which was basically a year of college along with other credits. So I was able to graduate in 3 instead of 4 years. But when it comes to languages, I've always loved those. We spoke mainly Arabic at home, and then obviously a little bit of German as well. And I enjoyed being able to learn French, English, and even Spanish at GSSV. We were able to be introduced to that. And then when I went to college, those are parts of the languages I tested out of, and ended up going abroad, lived in China for a little bit, lived in London for a little bit, and it was just really, really smooth.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. So I'm just trying to speed it up a little bit so that we might have a few questions answered. Marion, right? So Christian, talking also about the the international part, but also the transformation. So you did go to Columbia and the London School of Economics, right? So did that work well with the Abitur? Did that help you? Did that hinder you? Was it too complicated?
Yeah, it was very similar to what was said before, in that the academic level of the German school was very high, and so going into college, a lot of the subjects we had covered in language or also natural sciences and so on, they were equivalent with AP level in the US system, and so that got credited towards already the bachelor degree, meaning I could basically select other courses instead, or could have maybe even graduated in 3 or 3.5 years instead of the 4. So definitely a very smooth transition in that sense as well. I think, at the time, what was important, because I think the systems in terms of the universities are very different in the US and Germany, is to have support when it comes to the application process, the way colleges look at applications, the way, you know, the whole thing about essays, about volunteering. There's definitely a different culture for around the application process than in Germany. And I think having support either by someone who's in the school who can provide that, which was the case in the German school at the time, or, you know, have someone maybe externally hire someone to help prepare. For some families that has worked very well, because I think that it is very different from applying to university in Germany.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. Thank you so much. So, Lara, so what would you say, doing the Abitur, was it an advantage or a disadvantage, applying for university?
I personally found that the universities, at least in Canada, like what I can speak for, recognized the Abitur and they knew what averages meant and translated to the Canadian system here. And I know that is a lot of hard work from the German school, like the ABH, to make sure that we're recognized all over Canada. I found it not to be a challenge because most courses we took were at a much more advanced level than other systems here. So when we started university, I felt, and other colleagues as well, felt a little bit ahead than other students, which kind of gave us an advantage going into a bigger university, bigger program, a lot of more people. So it took some of that stress off knowing that, oh, I'm comfortable in this material, I can try to integrate into the program more.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. So, Elias, did you do anything special to prepare for your college application?
Yes, so I did take 6 AP exams in my 12th grade year, but there were no AP courses at AVH, so I studied for them on my own. I did find there was significant overlap with the material, of course, between what we had learned, you know, at the German school so far and what was the material for the AP exams. Definitely, at least the AP German language exam, you are allowed to take as a mother tongue speaker. So that is basically 3 free credits. I can highly recommend that one. But of course, the other ones were difficult, and it happened to coincide with the 2 weeks during which we were doing the oral Abitur. So that was certainly challenging. But you know, I would, you know, say give it a go if you're a strong student. You can make it work, and worst case scenario, you just have to retake introductory courses at university, which is also, you know, could be a very valuable thing to do.
Yeah.
Because in fact, McGill, where I went, requires people with an Abitur to do an extra introductory year for a 4-year bachelor's instead of the 3-year bachelor's of science that they let people who go through the Quebec 11 years of school and then 2 years of college system. But that's a Quebec specific thing that I wouldn't worry about anywhere else.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, and as we say in German, so der Mensch wächst an seinen Aufgaben. So, I mean, yeah, thank you so much. So, Elias, no, we just, sorry, Jennifer. So we are back in New York. So, I mean, applying at a German university with the Abitur obviously is not a very tough thing. But then you did your master's at the London School of Economics. So, was there any trouble?
No, and actually also just for my bachelor, it was partly bilingual. So there were courses in English, and so it was really an advantage also to have the kind of English and German. And I always remember my professor actually reached out in the first semester saying, oh, since you're from New York, you can help translate all these academic texts for me now. So I directly got a job actually with the professor working with him. So I think there's definitely a benefit coming with that. And then going from German bachelor degree to a master in the UK was also no problem. And I think it was a benefit having the Abitur for sure.
Okay, so you don't also no regrets going through the German school system?
No, definitely not.
Okay, so Jack, maybe also from you. So would you have any advice maybe for current students at the German schools, or maybe someone considering it, for how to apply for college, or what to pay attention to?
A good question. I think doing a good amount of research on and trying to figure out what your interests are is helpful. I think someone else on the panel earlier was saying that it's great that the US system has like a very open approach where you can find, take your time and figure out what you want to do in college. But it's also nice if you have some idea in advance to figure out which universities have, certain labs or systems or curriculums that really speak to you. So I think doing your research early is great. And particularly if you're looking for colleges in the US, I think a mistake that some of my classmates were doing was not focusing enough on the SAT and the ACT and preparing too much, on the other hand, for the Abitur. But if you know that you're going to go to the US system, it's equally important to do well on your Abitur as it is on the SATs. And I thought that that was something that some of my classmates kind of neglected, even though they knew they were going to study in the US long term. So I think, yeah, those are my 2 pieces of advice. And I guess more on the first one, if you can go see a campus, I always thought that was very helpful if you're able to do that.
Okay, great. Yeah, I think those are 2 great pieces of advice. So thank you very much, all of you. I hope we might stay in touch one way or the other. So Marion, I would bring it back to you and see if there are any questions. And I mean, we don't have to end precisely at 8 or so we can see how many questions there are from the audience that we might bring up. So I play it back to you, Marion, and thank you so much, everybody.
Well, most questions have actually already been answered, so this is great. There were some questions in the chat, and many were. This was a team effort. There were others who actually already answered questions while they were coming in, so thank you for that. I do have one question that came in through the registration, which was about hold. Where is it? See. I was so prepared, and now I'm not. About the science education that you received at the German International School, wherever you went. I know that some of you ended up going into the science field afterwards. How did that help you? Was it an advantage? Were you prepared for college in that way? That was one question that came in. Who would like to answer?
I can definitely say something about that. Now that I'm in a science healthcare field, I found that the science courses during Abitur and during the German system in general prepared me very well for the introductory year and the first couple of years that came after that during my bachelor's degree. I found it an advantage that I got to choose certain topics to do my Abitur in, and it got me to look more in depth into certain topics, and then I was able to then apply that when I went to university. So I think it's in that aspect, it's very strong to prepare us for sciences. I can't speak for anything else, but I can speak for sciences for sure, because then it helped me further down the line.
Great. Any other feedback on that? Any other opinions?
Yeah, I can speak on that a bit too. What I also really valued was that our sciences were taught like bilingual, essentially. And so we had some topics in English and some in German. And I ended up really being invested in like neurobiology when that came around in high school, which I then also was inspired to pursue for my undergrad. So I felt very prepared, and also many of the introductory science courses, it's a lot of familiar things basically that come up early on, and then the tempo just picks up as you would expect with any university. Yeah.
Great. Another question that came in was, so some of you have mentioned that you went from a small school to a small college, and that was great, but not everybody went from a small school to a small college. Some of you went to really big colleges. So how was that transition?
I can speak quickly to that. I don't know if 1,600 undergrads counts as a huge, or I guess 6,000 undergrads counts as a relatively big class, especially if you come from 9 students in your graduating grade. So it was definitely a culture shock. It was challenging at times. That doesn't mean that I'd want to change my high school experience. I went to Newton North, the public high school, for half a semester. So I got to see what a larger high school was like, and I really wanted to go back to the close, intimate classroom setting of the GISB. And I think you, like many other people, when transitioning college, there's always something that's new. And for me, it was just the size of the grade, and it took some adjusting, but I thought it was totally fine. And I think the GISB had prepared me for building relationships with people, for kind of navigating new environments, and that helped me master that challenge too.
Awesome. Thank you, Dominic. One question came in through the chat, and maybe some of the people that have gone through the German system and now have kids in the German school system could answer this. Because I actually don't have an answer to this, but the German schools in the US used to administer a different Abitur exam versus the current Deutsche Internationale Abitur exam. How do the two tests compare? If some of you, I'm not sure if we have the answer to that, but maybe some of you who are currently parents do.
Well, I was actually chair of the board of the German school in Washington when we had a last graduating class in 13th grade with the original Abitur administered, and then the German International Abitur administered the same year, and essentially losing 2 grade levels in 1 year and 50 students. It's seamless. Both are and were accredited by the German authorities in Berlin. So it's actually, it has a different name. It certainly has a different feel. It makes it easier to transition within schools because the system is more streamlined to one curriculum, like was mentioned earlier in the chat by Sebastian. The Northern Hemisphere essentially uses one curriculum between all of the German schools. So that makes transitioning easy. It's the picking of the subjects is the same everywhere within the network, but it's essentially you're taking the same exams as you were under a different name and a different label. It was just branded as a more international Abitur, essentially.
Great, thank you. Those are all the questions I have, and it's 8:02. We're so German, we're so on time. But I think, again, as I said at the beginning, we have recorded this event and we will send it to all the everyone who has registered. And in there, we will also provide contact information for the different contact people at the various German schools, so that if you do have follow-up questions or there is a question that you have asked and we didn't address today, that we will make sure to, we want to answer your question. So please reach out to us. And I do want to point out that we as a network also have a common website. It's called germanapproach.org, which is a website that we created a few years ago. Please take a look because it explains a lot about the German International Abitur, as well as gives you an overview of the different German schools. So it's germanapproach.org. And on there, you can actually also find a comparison between the German International Abitur and the IB, because that's a question that many families have as well. What are the differences? What are the advantages and what are the disadvantages of both? So I highly recommend checking that out. If you do have further questions, please do reach out to us. Unless there is another one right now, which I don't think there is, I would like to take this opportunity to thank all of our amazing panelists today. I am so excited that we were able to offer this event. As we said at the beginning, this is a first, and I'm blown away by all the stories that we heard today. And I'm really excited that we were able to get everyone together. And I want to give a huge shout out to Jens Kalte for moderating the event. This was wonderful. Thank you so much.
And thank you very much also from my side, just briefly to all the panelists. As a journalist, I can tell, I mean, you were all excellent interview partners. So if I need anyone in your field to interview, yeah, be aware, I'm coming for you. So that was really, really great stuff. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you. So unless there are any more questions, I just want to say thank you and Dankeschön, and have a wonderful evening, and take care. Tschüss.
Auf Wiedersehen.
Tschüss. Tschüss.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bis bald.